I think he alluded to
Superman.
the forbidden thing that everybody completely hated was actually because they alluded to Lois being pregnant at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League. In the original, it was going to be Bruce's kid, apparently.
Nice.
But they were going to change that in the end because the studio was like, you cannot do that.
Like, listen, that is original. I don't think that's ever been done before, even in the comics. I could be wrong. But don't do that.
Will not stick
but
the
the
landing. Do not
Russos
recommend.
were all about that idea. So let's go into DC news this week, and we're going to start off with everybody's, especially the Bulls' favorite segment, James Gunn Weekly Tweets.
Yes. Yes. Give it to me.
On Twitter, James Gunn did confirm, because that's how I kind of like it. I love it.
Hey, at least it's directly from the source.
That's exactly like that's
kind of why this is awesome that he does this.
And I just love that he just talks shit and stirs shit up. I love it.
It's really what the guy that's apparently, writing the next Avengers movies and all that, is probably what he should start doing. Get on Twitter, bro. People don't know you. We want to know stuff that's to come.
Tease us.
We didn't want to hear you talk about stuff. Tweet about things.
Yeah.
But he posted a picture of him and the Guardians crew on set, and somebody asked, "Is Creature Commandos coming out in 2024?" And he replied, "Yes." So we got a confirmation that Creature Commandos is coming out in 2024, which is actually, we had kind of talked about this earlier about how probably quite a few episodes ago, about how we would probably go into a big drought with DC of content after Aquaman 2, which drops at the end of 2023.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem like because we kind of forgot that these animated properties were going to come out before Superman Legacy. So not as long as of a drought. Even if it comes out at the end of 2024, it's a year, which might not be a bad idea. If they're rebooting, maybe give a little bit of time to, okay, the end of this universe, here's the new one.
Yeah, it would certainly lower the fatigue we always talk about. I mean, especially.
I just can't wait to talk about something that's horrendously stupid and bad, and it's good that it's gone from DC. Bring it up in a minute once he's done with his new segments. But back to James Gunn.
Back to James Gunn's new segment.
I was very upset that we'll get to that.
We'll get there.
Don't you worry.
Don't you worry.
Also on Creature Commandos, he did confirm that they've already got live action plans for some of those characters already, which we kind of talked about last week, which was so exciting about some of those announcements. So
definitely,
live action plans are already set. I would imagine David Harbour is probably one of those people.
One of the biggest names out there right now.
Dude,
probably.
And it's such a good casting, dude. He's doing such a good job. That's a thing for sure.
That's probably part of the pitch to him, like, hey, we're gonna get going on live stuff. Don't worry, man.
Yeah.
You aren't just gonna be a Wizard of Oz behind the curtain with your voice acting.
You're just setting it up.
Yeah.
Set it up with the voice, deliver with the live action.
And then to shift over, it was I believe Superman anniversary this week, and James Gunn officially confirmed that Superman Legacy is in early pre-production. So now costume designs are getting put in place. Cast lists are actually getting put together now.
I did hear that.
I think he even alluded maybe earlier today that they definitely got some people that they're targeting for Superman or Clark Kent, and he seems like he's pretty excited with the batch that he's got to pick from. So ball's starting to roll, and then along with Superman Legacy, someone asked, will Jimmy Olsen be in the movie? And he confirmed, saying, OFC. So for all the people that did hate on the Snyderverse and the lack, I mean, Jimmy Olsen technically does appear. That's why BVS Ultimate Edition is a superior edition. He is in that, even though you probably won't like how he's used anyway, so whatever.
Right.
Because he's not used in quite the traditional way, but
Is that 2 back-to-back 3-letter responses?
he's short and concise. He
Yeah,
doesn't want to leave his stuff open
man,
for
he's-
interpretation.
That's
He's
true.
like,
Yeah.
Like it's almost like it's in his pocket. Just I could just kind of throw it out.
That's probably what it is.
Little treat for him.
So, also, James Gunn has been kind of getting under fire this week because, and honestly, it's kind of been over the last few months ever since they've started the marketing for Guardians 3. Everyone, or not everyone, a vocal few are giving James Gunn crap for basically promoting Marvel properties while he's the head of DC. Quote, the worst business that DC could do was hire someone who advertises the competition. Unbelievable. Now, can you imagine what their moves are going to be like? Or movies are going to be like? I think it's a disaster.
Oh, God.
So
yeah.
James Gunn replies, the last thing DC would want is someone who would spend the last 12 years of his life creating a series of films and then turn his back on the last movie he created and poured his heart and soul into, as well as his collaborators and investors. I wasn't hired at DC without everyone on board being very clear and supportive up front and continuously throughout this process. Some of you are just dumb.
Yeah.
That's all I got to
Oh,
say.
it's dumb.
It's
Yeah.
just they open their mouths and a lot of unthought of like words. Just
They just don't understand how
Regurgitate.
business works at all.
no.
Like-
I mean, and even
Well, to them, it's just like
it's got to honor both
they're
parties.
they're making it like
Yeah.
political in
Yeah.
a sense, where it's like,
Yeah.
no, you got to be this one or the other.
Us
How
and them.
dare you?
Us and them.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like that sportsmanship a little bit to a degree. Not you have to like this one or the other, but the whole I like this one better than this.
Iron
Which one's
sharpen-
better? I
iron
like that
sharpens
whole
iron.
argument.
Yeah.
That's the fun part about superhero debates, as well as like, oh, who would win in this fight if they were 1-on-1?
Dude,
Like
armor
all those classic fun combos.
armor sharpens iron every time, and the more competition happens, the better the movies get. Has to. I mean, otherwise you'll just you'll be irrelevant. So.
Oh, kind of like with what we saw with Phase 4. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. I mean,
Rest in peace, Phase 4.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, or not.
Yeah,
Whatever.
or not.
Or
Yeah.
not, whatever.
I mean,
Whatever.
honestly, kind of thank you for being so bad because they learned their lesson from it. So, slowing down.
That's good. That's good. We'll see if it pays off.
Fingers crossed. We'll know in a month here. So,
True.
a few weeks actually.
Dude, that's crazy. Just sneaks up on you, man.
I know it does.
So that actually officially ends the weekly James Gunn tweet segment. So thank you, James, as always.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Thanks for keeping us in the news and the know and the wow, But this kind of segment from James Gunn weekly tweets, Russo brothers. The Russo brothers were in an interview recently. I think it was with Fandango, or Fandango broke this. They kind of got asked about the DC and what James Gunn's doing over there, and if they would kind of be interested. And quote, we don't get asked a lot about DC characters, Joe Russo admitted. James Gunn over there running it would be a no-brainer. Obviously, James over there would be a no-brainer. We love him to death. We love the direction he's going to take the world in. He's going to be inventive with it. They were also asked what's their favorite DC characters, I guess. And they basically, I'm not going to read the whole quote, but basically they kind of said they were a big Spider-Man and X-Men comics, but for DC it would have been Batman. But they also feel like there's so many iterations of Batman, so they kind of feel like that was just kind of like an obvious answer. But then they later came back in a different interview and kind of shut down the idea. They doubled down on saying they would love to work with James whenever he would like them to come in, but they would not do a Batman movie.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So,
Which that stinks because I mean they're right. Batman's just he's the golden boy of DC and it's been done so many times. But when I look at the Russo brothers and the way they wrote the two Captain America films that they did, and then with Avengers, I'm like, man, just hearing that, it's like they could probably write a great Batman.
Oh,
movie.
they
For
probably
sure.
could.
Or
For
like
sure.
they could probably just do a trilogy that might actually be good enough to rival Nolan's with how good they can do stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I wonder if
I don't
maybe the
know.
idea of like a Damian Wayne being there is just kind of a turn off too. It's like it almost seemed like they weren't interested in doing a Batman movie at all, just because of how many iterations they are. It almost seems like they want to do something they can kind of, make their own.
It's just a
path with
saturated.
and-
It's a saturated character. I
Mhm.
mean, especially by this point, God knows they are. I mean, they just keep pumping them out. I mean, for somebody else to go in and be like, "Let me do it again."
well,
Yeah,
Batman,
especially
Yeah.
while you got Matt Reeves on the other side too, and
Yeah.
Elseworld. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still excited because it seems like they're still open to doing something.
Yeah.
Is that maybe a Justice
Yeah.
League movie?
which
Oh, dude, that'd
Maybe.
be jackpot.
Maybe,
That'd be a
maybe.
jackpot for
I'd
them.
say if 'cause
both parties.
I can't imagine that
you think
James Gunn
do you
almost
think-
acted like he didn't
do
want to
you thi-
direct very much since he's in this new role because I imagine
I
he's
was
busy
gonna
as
say,
fuck,
do you
but-
think Gunn will eventually just if this? All right, so if this shit is good, like Superman is good, whatever other movies they use to establish this DCU, if it's good, and it's like okay, now we need a team up movie. Do you think he'd probably go to them and be like, okay, you guys did it.
I think they could.
Do
I
it
think they
again.
would be on the
Can you
list.
do it again?
I think they-
like
That
you
would
know
be
what I mean?
dope.
Like would they do that? Like hey, can you do it one more time?
I think they would be on the list. I also
Yeah.
think another
I'm
one
kind of
that
shocked
could
that
be
they
interesting.
even like. That's awesome that they said how like they would love to work with James again. Obviously, I just am kind of surprised just because I figured that literally with after all those stuff over at Marvel that they would be kind of turned off from the genre for a while. Which I mean, it's obviously going to be a while before you even get a Justice League movie. So
Right. I also like if it was an earlier project. I think one that would be pretty interesting to see them on would be the Authority. I think that would.
Yeah.
I think that would be another one that It's a team up movie. They've done it before pretty well. And I wonder if they almost, especially if they're going to go more like a boys route, let's say, a more mature route with them. I wonder if the Russos would be interested in that, being able to kind of take the gloves off because they kind of like were pulling the gloves off with their Marvel movies. Like they were kind of allowed to be a little bit more darker than the rest of them a little bit. So I wonder if they would be intrigued by the potential of doing a movie where they actually could just take them off and see what basically an unrated Russos would be, or an R-rated, not unrated, but an R-rated Russos, or just like a heavy PG-13 Russos. I think that would be pretty cool to also see. But I definitely think the Russos would be on the list for Justice League 2 down the road. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. It seems like an obvious choice, a no-brainer.
Yes, a no-brainer. But also segmenting from the Russo brothers, the old godfather of the DC, the DCEU, Zack Snyder, the GOAT.
Snidey.
He was on a podcast with the Russo brothers.
Okay.
And I'm not going to talk about the whole thing because they broke it up in actually two parts, which I also thought was hilarious. When the first one ended, it was like, part 2 releases in a few days. I was like, of course he has 2 parts because it's Zack Snyder. But
Split it up into acts.
it was.
Oh, yeah.
So, before I get into that, he also unveiled the official T-shirt that for SnyderCon, which the art was done by Jim Lee, an all-time
greedy asshole.
all-time GOAT comic book artist.
Gotta sell the memorabilia.
It's for charity.
Oh, okay. That gets okay.
It's for
Pass.
suicide prevention.
Oh, thank God.
Dick.
Yeah, I am. Man. Yeah, I
What
did
a
not
greedy
know that.
asshole. Yeah, what a greedy asshole.
Never mind. He's not a greedy asshole. He's very thoughtful.
Yes.
Did not know this.
We're sorry.
I am sorry.
We're
actually,
sorry.
now.
But he has shared the official art for the T-shirt that Jim Lee, who is a
God, what a
bona fide
massive
certified
fuck.
GOAT comic book artist, which I will show you now, obviously, right here.
Thank God we're not famous yet.
I know. You're not helping us, Kevin.
No,
Kevin.
I'm not.
Kevin.
Definitely not.
Let's see. So, but I would just, I'm just going to pull a few things out of here, but overall, I would highly suggest watching it. It's just really cool watching these awesome film directors break down their processes and kind of get to see their actual like personalities. And yeah, I personally just always love seeing Zach in an interview. I could see him being very polarizing to watch an interview because he gets so excited and he kind of gets a little sporadic in the way he speaks. Like if you had to translate what he says, like to actually and then read verbatim what he said, it wouldn't make sense.
You're just sitting there,
but
so you'd be sitting there. You're like the stenographer or something. Just like I fucking hate this. Like,
Paid enough for this shit.
But, I always like it because
get a bonus check every time we have this asshole on. Isn't it?
I always like watching him in interviews though because you can just tell he's very passionate and gets very very excited about what he does, and I just think it's really cool to see that out of an artist. So I just think it's a really cool podcast in general. So highly recommend that. I think it's like they basically eat pizza and talk about film.
Hell yeah.
I'm sure if you just look up the Russo's
like those
podcast,
things.
it'll pop up.
They
literally just
they
eat pizza and talk about film.
and talk about film. Damn, I love those two things.
right up my alley. Let's go.
Shit, I should have been doing that for this.
But the movie they specifically wanted to kind of peel the onion back with Zack Snyder was Justice League.
Of course.
So obviously a few things came up in that. One of them, Snyder talked about how originally there was going to be a Lois Lane and Bruce Wayne love thing after Superman died.
That happens in the animated show.
And then they're also, I think he alluded to
Superman.
the forbidden thing that everybody completely hated was actually because they alluded to Lois being pregnant at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League. In the original, it was going to be Bruce's kid, apparently.
Nice.
But they were going to change that in the end because the studio was like, you cannot do that.
Like, listen, that is original. I don't think that's ever been done before, even in the comics. I could be wrong. But don't do that.
Will not stick
But
the
the
landing. Do not recommend.
Russos were all about that idea. At least the love angle between Bruce and Lois. They were like, and they even said they're like, I want to see that movie. And this is the main thing that Zach said in this whole thing that most people are hanging on to, is he in the midst of the conversation, like one day looked up and said one day. So everyone's like, oh my, one day, like oh my god, they're selling.
Hashtag restore the Snyderverse.
So everyone's freaking out.
Or he's just trolling you.
I didn't even take it as that. I took it as like a maybe one day you'll see a story like that. I don't think he actually was saying like, well, one day you'll see it. Like, I think because it was in the middle of him like starting to say something else when they said it. So then he was like, yeah, one day, and then he kept going on. So
that's just to get you all hot and bothered.
Exactly.
The thing, well, actually, I'll get to that next. He also talked about how the studio thought that the cut of BVS wasn't funny enough, and the Russos actually kind of thought that was archaic thinking because now we're kind of seeing it nowadays that like honestly the old like especially the Snyder movies and the older DC movies, they've been aging a lot better to people that have been going back and watching them because it's different from Marvel. It's not all bright and jokes and it's just different.
That's why I like it.
And that's, I think, another reason why Phase 4 has also been teetering. You guys finally caught on to what I've been saying about Marvel since Phase fucking 2, man. Like, I'm not getting into that. But, so, what's actually ironic, though, is, and Zach pointed out how he always loves having director's cuts of his movie. He said this. I don't know if this is actually true because if this is true, that this is quite a wild stat. He said the director's cut of his movie, so this is purely just physical and digital sales, led to 80% of the total revenue for BVS. That's insane. If that is actually true.
Yeah.
And
well, I remember when it came out, people blew up right away. They were like, "Oh my god, yeah, like." Why did you even cut this down?
Yeah, and
because it was like a night and day difference of how much better the movie was with that extra 30 minutes.
And what's also funny is, I don't know about you guys, but we'll talk about Justice League. To me, actually, the Snyder cut is genuinely got more funnier comedic moments in it than that abomination of an ass movie of Justice League, the Justice League. because that made me cringe. They didn't make me laugh or chuckle. I just cringed most of the movie.
They were tactful.
This movie, I actually.
Okay.
There's only
Tactfully
one
placed.
part in this movie I cringed, and it's when that lady just kept singing for far, far too long. That was why I was like, okay, you could have cut that a little earlier.
Well, that's
Other than that,
that's
any
your boy.
comedic moment
That's
in there
your boy.
was
Putting in that weird shit he's got to have in there.
whoa.
Easy with the witch.
Okay.
Literally
Literally every time Wonder Woman's on the screen in that movie.
I will.
Just every single time.
I will say that is my other complaint, and I think my only 2 complaints about that movie is when Aquaman goes to sea and that lady sniffs the sweater and sings way too long. I'm like, that was a little weird and creepy. Like, I kind of get it that they're obsessed with him. He's like a god to them. Okay, I get it. And then yes, when every time Wonder Woman come out, I'm like, okay, if you did it like for a few scenes, yes, cool, but otherwise, just get into the guitar riff that everybody like loves, like
Right.
But
it's so funny.
anyway,
Just
I do love it. I do love in that movie when he does he explores the Wonder Woman and Bruce relationship, and like she touches his hand and he's like, nope, it's fine. It's like perfectly normal thing that happens between 2 people. Like, I chuckle every time. It's really not that funny, but I just love it because I'm used to the animated universe where Wonder Woman tries to get in Batman's pants like all the time in the cartoon shows or in the Justice League cartoon. So, yeah.
and then the last thing that I'm gonna take from this interview, which I personally thought was the most interesting bit, he confirmed that there is an IMAX version, an IMAX cut
oh, stop.
of the Snyderverse or the Snyder cut. And
Here we
he
go
confirmed
again.
he confirmed that there is a
Let's go.
15-minute
Of course.
intermission in the middle.
Oh, okay.
Intermission. Okay.
In the middle.
I like that.
I was expecting something different to be said there, but all right.
Bonus content. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Oh,
Raw footage.
Yeah,
It's the
unreleased.
Green Lantern in it, not Martian Manhunter. Just
I'm gonna give you 8 different endings. And...
so I personally thought this was really interesting because I was like, oh, holy shit. He basically just came out and said there's an IMAX cut. What does this mean? A day or 2 later, I kind of remembered and realized that, oh, well, at Snyder Con, they're showing the Snyder cut in IMAX. So that's probably why.
Is that what it is? Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Test screening. Okay.
And the intermission being there, yes, because that movie's 4.5 hours
so
or whatever. long.
I would imagine what that's for. Like I said, a few videos ago, when I said, like, one of the few things that I think we maybe have a shot at getting is maybe a limited theatrical release of the Snyder Cut announcement. Maybe.
Yeah.
I still put my money on the Green Lantern scene. I still think that's showing up.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'll go absolutely ballistic if he's like,
We're selling this.
But I still don't think that's going to happen, although he still keeps just dropping
We're
nuggets
gonna
that I'm just
get
kind of like...
Dark Superman. One day.
And then
Oh yeah, one day.
the last bit of DC news that I have, and it's just a real quick one, more just like what to look forward to next week on episode 34 of T3P. The new Flash trailer drops on April 25th. So next week we
Okay.
will definitely be talking about and reacting to that. So,
Is that Tuesday?
Yes.
Tuesday.
yes. So,
Man, I
oh,
really
that,
hope
yeah,
it does-
because actually they're,
I hope
and
it doesn't show too much more.
you're
Right.
probably actually potentially going to see a lot of spoilers out there. Maybe not, because they probably have to sign NDAs, but they are on Tuesday as well, which is probably why the new trailer's dropping. They are showing the full version of this movie at CinemaCon to all the movie theater owners and whatnot, so, and a few media pundits. But so I would be on the lookout. You shouldn't see any spoilers, because I'm pretty sure they have to sign NDAs, but we know how that goes.
Yeah, it literally never matters.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that, especially if you're on Twitter.
If you
So
really want to combat that type of thing anymore, these places, they just got to start. Just people are at the door. It's like, all right, hand your cell phone over.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way you're gonna ever stop this shit.
Well, yeah, and even when they show the test screenings of these Comic Cons and stuff, like you're seeing everything that's the private behind closed doors screening. You're seeing snippets of it everywhere as soon as they show it. It's like if you really want it to be secret, keep it a damn secret. Like you stop with all these exclusive screenings if you don't want it out.
And
You truly don't want
probably
it out.
also, stop with the whole red carpet premieres that are 2 weeks ahead of worldwide release. Like, for one thing, I'm kind of getting tired of people who aren't even goddamn famous out in Los Angeles that get to go to that shit. I have no right to be there. Yeah, I'll say it, and I don't care.
The old content creators.
Yeah, influencers.
Influencers, that's it.
Stupid
Yeah.
fucking thing. Goddamn, don't even get me started.
Oh, you shake your ass and wear skimpy stuff. Come to our premiere.
Right.
What? Like, what are you?
I tell my brain that they have to like pay to still be a part of that. Like, that's how I cope. That's my copium. No, anyways,
Copium.
aside from hating aside, yeah. Their lives aren't that great. Just keep going. No, to stop hating because I don't really want to. But yeah, probably knock that off too because even those get in there and just
Yeah. Dude, the one I watched on YouTube was on a GoPro. Like, somebody had a GoPro on, and they just were clear as day image. I was like sitting there watching. I'm like, huh. It was the Acolyte screening. I'm like sitting there, I'm watching. I'm like, huh, interesting.
Yeah, like that's the thing. You gotta
What?
like, I don't know. You just gotta stop the shit, but whatever.
Yeah. If they really.
But at the same time, they can't because the people who do abide by the NDA and the people that are good and said people we just complained about, the ones that are good about it, like they don't like sit there and go and throw spoilers out there for everything because well, for one, it'd kill their profession.
Right.
Let's say unless you're one of them people that specifically got in the game to be a leaker and a scooper.
Yeah.
If you're somebody that's not that, and then you start doing that, you're probably potentially going to kill your family.
Right.
Black.
I've even seen a lot of people that started off as like scoopers and insiders type of things.
Yeah.
And they've slowly transitioned to not being that anymore. They're more like they got big enough to they're like, all right, I have an audience. I'm just going to start reviewing and reacting and do news updates and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, got big enough. You're like, I'm tired of this heat. Let's just do some easy going shit.
The block.
I'm getting really tired of all these cease and desist letters. So yeah, I'm just gonna stop.
Block got a little too hot for him, I think.
Tired of fighting Hollywood. Okay.
Right.
But yeah, that concludes DC news for this week. KP, we're gonna throw it over to Marvel.
All right, old Marvel.